Okay, Stallion, at the end of the inner circle, you left me with a cliffhanger, and I've just got to know, right? So for this episode, we're talking about the 7 cures, not curses, for a lean purse. And in the inner circle, somebody mentioned, hey, I thought it was going to be curses. That seemed interesting. And you said, well, there was a time, I know that I lived in New Orleans, but there was a time I worked for a company and this lady may or may not have made a voodoo doll in my image. I got to know about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I'm not proud of this, but the mortgage business can be super stressful, especially between the sales people and the processing department.
Okay.
Yeah. So the processor is just the person you hand off the file. They're trying to get all the details done so that the package can be sent to the closing on time, so people move in when they're supposed to.
And the processors get paid the same amount of money if you close $5 million in loans, or $500,000 in loans.
Regardless.
Right.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there was a time where I inherited a processor that was one of those employees that, just played the game. Like, they did just enough not to get fired. They didn't do anything like extra to make sure they went above and beyond to get people closed on time. They're kind of like, they didn't get the stuff to me, so we're not going to close on time.
This is like Milton from Office Space.
Yes, okay. By far. And it was terrible. The relationship was bad. When I have to get involved and have like a daily huddle with somebody to micromanage them to make sure we don't miss closings, this is a bad thing.
Yeah, you're not great at follow through. So if you're doing that, I got to know you're upset.
Yeah. And so, the relationship is on the rocks. But when you walk, here's when I knew it was really bad.
Okay.
I walked by her little cubicle one day, and there's a little doll, like a pincushion doll, on her desk that resembles somebody I know.
Oh, yeah?
Dark hair.
Okay.
Glasses.
I'm getting the picture.
Devilishly handsome with a tie and a little suit. And there's some pins sticking out of it.
Did it have a phone on his belt?
There was no phone.
Okay, so you wasn't 100% certain, but it was super close.
It was really close, 95%.
Okay, so it has pins in it?
Pins in it.
Okay, so you're like, wait a second. That looks way too close to me.
And it was just one of those days where I was super frustrated, and I see that and I said, what in the world is that? And her little devilish little kind of grin when she looks up at me and she says, what do you think it is? And I said, okay, this is it. I've had enough. This is terrible. I storm off. And by the way, when was the last time you ever had to call HR to report, first of all, somebody's performance, but second of all, the fact that they have a voodoo doll of you? By the way, it was a first for the person on the other line of that HR call.
They're like flipping through the book, like, give me 1 second. Like flipping through. Wait, yeah. Where's the section on voodoo dolls and how to handle that?
Yeah, that never happened. They'd never seen that before. And so anyways, long story short, it was a bad day for me, but we did end up having to let her go. It was a terrible.
Did you guys have to like write up disciplinary behavior, voodoo and curses were present in her workspace?
Exactly. And by the way, it didn't work. Like, the little pins did not hurt me. I did not feel.
You never felt it.
So her voodoo was bad, just as bad as her processing job. So. Anyway, just for what it's worth, that was my story.
That is bad voodoo. Well, unlike today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 7 cures for a lean purse from the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's an amazing, timeless classic, and we're going to apply how those 7 cures to a lean purse actually apply in infinite banking, and how you can use that. If you're thinking about how to start a new policy, there's a formula, kind of a framework, I think, that comes from this book as well. We talk about that a little bit toward the end. And as always, just the camaraderie, the going back and forth. We got to play golf today, so we get to beat up on each other a little bit during that. And also, if you want to know more about how you can get engaged with our audience, how you can talk to other people doing infinite banking, take advantage of the 7-day free trial we have within the Inner Circle. Go to wealthwellwallstreet.com/inner circle. That is the place where you can ask questions, where coaches will respond to you, and you can talk to people who are doing this, who's on that same journey with you. And also, you can then take part in the Q&A that happens every single week after this podcast episode. So Stallion, let's belly up.
Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Welcome into the IBC Roundtable, where each week we dive deeper into your favorite subject, the infinite banking concept. I'm the host, or at least one of your hosts, the idea guy, Russ Morgan. I'm sitting around the table with the best coaches in the infinite banking community. And to my right, my co-host, the Italian Stallion, the man that's got the worst golf swing outside of my own, Joey Murray. How are you?
Man, that was the longest and worst introduction, but I'll take it because I did just whoop your tail on the golf course. So I do appreciate that.
Was it longer than the walk between your tee ball and your second shot?
That was a really long way. No, I don't think I could say that.
Okay, good. Joey, we're talking about the 7 cures for a lean purse. And we're not talking about that fanny pack that you carry around with all your medicine in it. We're talking about the subject matter from The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yes.
Are you excited to talk about this today?
I'm all over this. This is fantastic. This is an oldie. It's a classic. And if you haven't read it, which, by the way, several people in our community have already said it's on their list. So hopefully this will be one of those things that will encourage you why we make it such a big deal.
Very, very good book. All right. To my right, we've got the man, the legend, the guy that was crushing golf balls today, downtown Ernie Brown. He really went downtown today. What's up, Ernie?
Taking it downtown. Can I ask a question?
You may.
Whose game would you rather have? Choose one. Joey off the tee or Russ from 50 yards and in?
Ooh.
Yikes.
The distance of the ball leaving the club face was about the same. Oh man, it was brutal. If you're watching this live, you're like, you three guys have hats on, and we literally just came in from a golf tournament today, so we're coming in hot. But let's get to the other side of the table. Let's get to the man between bamboo, our resident pilot, Mark Haraguchi. How are you, Mark?
Doing good, guys. How's everybody else?
We've had good days, better days, not bad days.
Bad
Just
hair day right now?
Yes. So bad. Mark, what's your level of excitement today on a scale of 1 to 10 to talk about the 7 cures for a lean purse?
Well, I this definitely is there's something in here for everybody. I mean, you may not be able to check all 7 off, but if you can get in there and at least find 1 or 2, you're definitely going to position yourself to be farther ahead than you were before.
Totally. I agree 100%. Mr. Incredible, JD Hill, how are you today?
Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, I'm hungry. And I got to lunch a little bit late, so I've got a chicken sandwich over here waiting for me after the show, and I'm really excited to dig into that.
All right, so Ernie, would you mind sharing, for those who have not read The Richest Man in Babylon and have not dug into what the 7 cures for a lean purse are, would you kind of share what those 7 are?
Yeah, I'll just read them.
Let's do it.
This reading and you're hearing from the old King James version.
Nice.
Number 1, start thy purse to fattening. Live on 9/10 of your earnings. Number 2, control thy expenditures. Number 3, make thy gold multiply. 4, guard thy treasures from loss. 5, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. 6, ensure a future income. And 7, increase thy ability to earn.
Increase thy ability to earn. Said well. Initial take, JD.
Initial take is I love Old English, and I wish, candidly, I wish we all still spoke that way because it's a very eloquent way of speaking. Truthfully, that is my initial take. Beyond that, the thing that stands out to me the most about this is I think oftentimes we get so focused on the shiny silver object syndrome, right? And that the keys to building wealth are so simple, right? And they're unchanging. And that's kind of my key takeaways from this is it's simple. It's just execution.
Good point.
How about you, Mark?
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. There's something in there for everybody. If you can't find one of those things that at least resonates with you in what you're trying to do, we need to really take some stock there, because there's multiple opportunities within those 7 to find at least 1 or 2 or 3, if not most of them, that can get you farther down the road to where you want to be than where you are today.
Stallion.
I would say that this, to me, has kind of created a framework for some of the folks come to us and they say, all right, I'm ready to do this infinite banking thing, but how much should I do? Like, what should my premiums be? And to me, it's great to have something that's timeless as this that can outline for you kind of the roadmap of a goal of getting up to, and we're going to talk probably in a little bit about this, but up to 30% should be going to a system like what we put together with these infinite banking systems. And then even more, like that's just a starting goal. But anyway, I like the fact that he outlines that in the book.
Ernie?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this book. It's really good. It's all in that old English, difficult to read. But one thing that I really like about it is I don't think that it is this particular section of the 7 cures for a lean purse, but there's one section in the book where several topics are talked through. And the setting is that they've gone into some sort of an arena, and there's a gathering of people who have come to listen to somebody who's really successful. And they're sitting around and then he's sharing, and then there's people asking questions.
Yeah.
And the questions are really good. It's people in there who are wanting to learn.
Right.
So I love this topic because I really like this book, and specifically I like the idea of being around other people who are sharing information and then having people ask questions and give feedback. And as we were preparing for this, it just made me think that's kind of exactly what's going on in the center circle, isn't it? We got several people who in a few minutes will be having conversation with similar to what's going on in that book.
You're right. I mean, the author is kind of detailing an example of the richest man of Babylon. I think his name is Arkad. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and he is leading students through the 7 cures.
Some friends, I think.
Yeah.
They grew up and we know this guy, he became really successful.
Yeah,
what can I do?
And he's sharing that wisdom. And I think overall, this whole book kind of shares a couple of really important lessons. And one of them that comes out and stands out to me is that a part of every dollar that you make is yours to keep. Now, is so simple, but how many people do we interact with on a daily basis don't quite understand that, because they don't operate under that protocol, because at the end of the day, they don't have all the dollars. And that's one of the rules. One of the cures for a lean purse is to taking the first part of this, taking the first dollar we have and start that purse to fattening, he says. And that's by, if you put in 10 coins, only take out 9. But so many times we don't follow that. And I love that for this part of the book. It's just teaching those areas for us.
Well, to your point, Russ, so many people have been taught to put money in places that they can't touch, they can't get their hands on, and it doesn't seem like it's their money anyway. In fact, we've even had people on the show talk about 401ks and how they didn't even know that they didn't have access to their own money. It became somebody else's money at that point.
Well, to that sort of future retirement, but also how about the concept everybody thinks about when they think about paying down debt, right? Save up a little money to the side and then don't keep anything from that point on. Just pile it, go pay down those things as much as you can, all of it. And that kind of pushes back against that thought process as well.
All right. So I do want to go into these 7 cures, which of those do you resonate with most? So, Mark, you want to jump in there? What's the one that sticks out to you that you tend to agree with most?
Spend less than you earn.
Spend less than you earn.
Why is that?
Well, it's really easy to not get yourself out of whack if you're spending less than what you're bringing home. Goes right to that his first statement, right? You know, if you've got 10 coins, you really should only be taking 9 of them out. So you're living within your means. You're not overextending yourself. You're not pushing yourself beyond what your finances can handle. And I think that's how a lot of us can get ourselves into trouble, is when we do follow that shiny object syndrome, you know, the shiny penny syndrome. Ooh, I want to keep up, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, right? You know, someone's got a new fancy thing, so I want to go get that too. But is that really in my budget? Is that really getting me where I want to be?
Okay. I've heard enough about infinite banking. I'm pretty sure it's a fit for me and my family, Russ. How do I get started?
Let's take that pretty sure and make it darn sure. Reason you do that is that you get clarity, Joe. You need to get on a 15-minute call with one of our coaches at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call.
Then you'll know where you're starting from and where you're headed. And only then can you implement the infinite banking process.
All right. So go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call to get that 15-minute conversation, gain clarity. But now let's jump back into today's episode. And I love the part when he was going through that in the book. You know, he was saying that some people would question, how could I live off less? Right. But he said, well, not every one of you make the same amount of money. Well, why is it that some can live off of it and others can't? And regardless of how much money they make, it's the decision. And the burden is not on someone else for you. It is for you. I mean, it's that investment in yourself. JD, what would you say is the one cure from the 7 that you agree with or resonate with the most?
I agree with all 7. The one that sticks out to me the most is number 7, increase thy ability to earn. And I think this is so often underappreciated and underdiscussed, is the idea of learning and getting better at your craft, right? And I teach my kids this constantly, which is that if you want to earn more money, create more value. And I think that our society so much today has that so inverted. They don't realize that wealth creation is directly tied to value creation. And so if you want to earn more wealth, add more value, and the market will pay you what you're worth.
Totally.
And so that to me resonates so much, just because I love to learn. I love to understand new things. And I'm always wanting to get better and sharpen my saw or my sword, whichever one you're using, my axe, right? But it's how can I add more value to whatever it is that I'm participating in, and that ultimately leads to creating more wealth.
Well, you speaking of someone sharpening a saw and trying to add value. Today, I was getting crushed by these guys trying to charge me way too much to clean a tree off one of my lines.
Yeah, it owned him. That was another reason why he couldn't hit a golf ball.
I digress. Ernie, which one do you like the most?
Well, you sort of talked about this earlier, but the first one for me is to, of all your gold, 1/10 is yours to keep. That makes me think about so many people want to make a great impact, want to finish well, right? I went to a conference and it was about finishing well, right? But starting is really important. I've heard Mark talk about it's not how you drive, it's how you arrive. I hear Mark saying that often, but how important is it for us to start well if we're going to finish well? And how much more difficult does it become if we don't start well to finish well? And I love that. It's the basics, right? And I think that's why it's number 1 on purpose. But I just love the idea of, okay, here's a start that we can make. Here's something very tangible. Tell me, I want a game plan. I want to know what to do. That's very specific. I like that.
Imagine, Joey, you being able to use my drive and me being able to use your short shots today.
Unstoppable.
Somebody would have still had a putt for us, but
yeah.
So for Joey, it really is how you drive.
He does need the help with driving. Joey, which one of these 7 do you like the most?
Well, I think I'm thinking about this specifically in light of infinite banking and the process of infinite banking. allows you to, as he says, one of these is to ensure a future income. And so infinite banking allows us to do two things at once. One, use our dollar to create passive income today, but also allow those dollars to continue to grow and subsequently be able to turn on a future income, as Nelson would always say, at passive income time. He would never say retirement. At the same time, you're building two assets and two streams of income at the exact same time. So to me, infinite banking fits this perfectly because it allows you to do exactly what he's talking about.
And I love that. I realized this last year, looking through the Becoming Your Own Banker book, when he gets into the examples of these policies and the different uses of them, no matter what it is, every single one shows passive income being taken at the end of those policies. I love that. He's showing a future income with those policies after they've been used for purposes you're talking about.
Yeah. And my thing is get the passive income today and that one. Like that's the cherry on top. We get our financial freedom today and we just enhance it later.
Yeah. For me, the one I tend to resonate with most, and it's probably the reason why I sit here, is because the market dropped in 2008, had a significant drop at that time. And the fourth cure is guard thy treasure from loss. And I resonate with that because what we're teaching through infinite banking is building a foundational tool, a place that our principal is safe, right? That's what this section is covering there. And that fourth cure is that you should not only find wise investment, but more importantly, you should guard thy principal from loss, that you should not put it in a place that it can lose. And I think sometimes we've made bad decisions with money and we learn from those decisions. But when we start thinking of, if we can get our money constantly compounding and growing, that's one of the things that people always say, man, that's the real miracle. That's the beauty of using these compounding interest vehicles through whole life insurance. That helps me. But also we know that money is protected. It's not only protected from volatility, it's protected from taxes. Because when we have to pay a tax, that dollar no longer can compound for us. So it stops compounding interest. Too often times do we find investments that may have high rates of return, but if they're subject to 100% ordinary income tax with no write-off potential, it might not be as a good return as we really wanted it to be. And then the third part of loss can happen when it can be taken from you. And I think about in creditors, right? So there are times where we're in businesses, and if we don't adequately secure the business, whether that be from the way that we set up the entity, or we have some other means like a life insurance policy that is already granted that creditor protection. So I kind of resonate with that one because it got me into it, but also two, just the way my brain thinks is, not only can we get to profit from gain, but also from avoiding loss. Mark, I know we were talking the other day, and it seemed like this one resonated with you a little bit as well.
Well, I'm still on, controlling expenditures, because it just makes the most sense to me. So because then it doesn't necessarily, I don't have to worry about some of the other ones, right? How much is coming in, well, if I'm always recognizing how much is coming in, then now I just control how much is going out.
Well, but what I meant by that, I'm sorry, I kind of threw that on you without context, is we were talking around the concept of this new COVITRA Act. I don't even know, it's Consolidated Reconciliation of Joey, I don't know, whatever it is, right?
Consolidated Appropriations Act, HR 133.
Yeah,
I haven't
you were kind of lamenting the fact that some of the treasure that you had is not available to you that like you wish it would be.
Yeah, it has become just shy of a Herculean effort of going through, of speaking to my qualified plan, and then them saying, we don't know what you're talking about. You don't have that option to withdraw those funds. The CARES Act ended. Yes, I understand the CARES Act ended. Did you realize there was an extension? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so then you go to the company. Hey, so why are you guys not doing this? yeah, it's not accessible to you. So along the way, other people got to make decisions over my treasure as to when and how I could access it, how and when I could access it. And now I basically have to go with hat in hand saying, could you please, boy, wouldn't it be great if you would acknowledge the piece of legislation that is set in motion that allows me as a US citizen to access my qualified plan and take it out without a penalty. We'll think about that.
Yeah, if you don't know what Mark's talking about, we did an episode on this not too long ago where most people did think that the CARES Act was the last stand, if you will, to get access to 401k or IRA money, and that ended in 2020. But there was an extension to it through this new rule, and it had a little leeway. So we'll send you back to the podcast that we did on that. But yes, I mean, you're sitting there looking at the possibility that if you keep it in there, right, that you're staring at potential losses from what the market may or may not do, but also more importantly, the loss of opportunity, because you've already been so successful putting money to work in other places. So the gap between what it could do and what it will do is where you're at, right? And how do you guard that treasure from loss when it's out of your hands?
I don't know. I am trying to liberate those guys every day. I just got off a phone call right before this with the company Human Resources, and it's now we're petitioning the board. So there's a retirement board within the company, and they're the ones that determine what provisions you do and don't get to use. And I'm going, can I get in on that? Do you want me to make a phone call? Do you want me to write a letter? Do you want me to plead my case? What's it going to take? I got a bunch of friends. They're locked up in purgatory. It'd be great if we could let them loose and get them out there.
Yeah.
Do you have to join the board? I mean, like you have to campaign? I mean, what's the story? Good night.
Yeah. So it really helped illuminate what some of these other things are that go behind the scenes that a lot of us don't know about. And I was sharing this with a neighbor who, through the course of our conversations, he's starting to see more and more like, wow, he said, I had no idea that there were so many limitations and restrictions on some of these monies that we are initially led to believe, well, that's yours. Don't worry. It's all going to be great and everything's going to be fine. But then you start to, pull the curtain back and you see the wizard behind the curtain, pulling the levers. And so, yeah.
And what was the reasoning given to you as to why you could not access your own treasure?
The initial reasons were it was decided that this wasn't appropriate. And then you dig a little bit deeper, and then you finally start to get to the point where the board made the decision that, well, we don't think this is going to impact anyone, so we don't need to do it. But what they didn't see was my one lone hand in the back of the room. But
let me.
Yeah. So now that there's one person, one squeaky wheel, there, hopefully, because otherwise it was going to be pushed to the point of contacting the Department of Labor as to why I was being discriminated against.
And by the way, I think if there was a way for you to inform the rest of the people in the company that this option exists, there'd be a lot more hands being raised. They just didn't know, right? They hadn't listened to the podcast that we did on that to let them know that this is available.
Yeah.
Good for you that you're holding your hand up and making them take a stronger look at this. All right. So as we get ready to wrap up, I do want to apply what you said, Joey, just a second ago. You talked about, or kind of alluded to, there's a framework that someone can go through as applying some of the principles within the 7 cures to thy infinite banking policies. By the way, I have to. I'm not going to get this die out of my mouth after reading out loud to you guys for 20 minutes. But you want to share what that means?
Yeah. Well, we're actually going to be joining others here in the inner circle to go through an example and be able to draw this out so you can see it in real time. But the basis is that it's a 10, 20, 70. If you can kind of keep those numbers in mind, 10% is your savings, 20% would be applying to paying down debt, and then 70% is what you live off and what you give from. And so to me, what that really does is it gives people a goal because they don't know. Everybody wants to know, what are other people doing? What's a good number to start with? Well, my thought is maybe you can't jump straight to 30% of your income because you've got to get some things kind of put in place. You need to go through some of the courses that we have on the automated budget and figure out where money is kind of leaking. But this gives you a goal to say, hey, this is where I need this to get to, and I'm going to start with what I can. But anyway, we're actually going to bring our good friend Derek Zoolander into the inner circle and do a case study on him to show how we actually set up policies to accommodate this.
Blue steel coming at you. I love it.
And by the way, if you're not a part of the inner circle, you're going to miss out on this conversation. So don't hesitate. It's a free trial as it is, 7-day free trial. Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/inner circle. We would love to have you be a part of this.
All right. So as we wrap up here, I'd love to get final thoughts. JD?
Yeah, final thoughts are thou will be guarding thy treasure from loss, and thou will be working hard and endeavoring to continue to talk like this going forward.
What pronoun is thou? Is that a singular or plural pronoun?
Yes.
Are you going to start putting thou behind your name? Thou and thy? Ernie?
I don't know how to follow that.
Thou digress.
Yes, thou is digressest. For me, I'm thinking, what's the point? What's the purpose? What are we trying to accomplish here? This book, The Richest Man in Babylon, this is some insight. These are some practices. This is a pathway. And there's so many connections here to what people are doing with IBC, the process of using money. Now we can add a framework of, got this money, I want to use it. How do I use it in this framework? This 10, 20, 70 that we're about to break down, I think is super helpful.
How about you, Mark?
I think if you're just looking for all of us, right? Everybody needs a start point. I mean, we always talk about, well, we need to know where we're trying to get to so we know how to pack to get there. If you're struggling and you're trying to figure out, just a basic, okay, how can I get started? Well, here you go. Steps 1 through 7. Start thy purse to fattening, control thy expenditures, make thy gold multiply. And you go through those. And I think Joey's point was good, is you may not be ready to start with your 30% just yet. You may not be ready to do all 7 of these. But if you take a look at these 7, you can easily find 1, 2, or a couple of them that you can start implementing today to get you moving down the road to be where you want to be quicker.
Joseph?
I'm gonna end where we started and just bring it back to the simplistic nature of this book and the simplistic nature of building wealth. It is super easy. Like, it's a simple process. And if you've been overwhelmed, like thinking about, okay, I see people seeking financial freedom, I know I want that, but it just seems like it's overwhelming. Hopefully today you can walk away and say, man, this is a lot simpler. And number 2, infinite banking as a part of your plan makes this, like, so many of these things possible and simple, right? You don't have to figure out the vehicle. It's already there. You just need a coach to kind of walk you through it. And I want to, just put a plug in for these guys. You hear them every week on this roundtable, and our coaches are phenomenal. So you need to get a call with them. You need to go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call and set up a 15-minute call and start walking through some of these things to get to setting up your system and then get to your own financial freedom. So just keep it simple.
Well, and I think that's one of the points from Guard Thy Treasure from Loss. And I know that was the one that I kind of resonated with the most, but it said that we should be better to consult the wisdom of those that are experienced in handling of money and those that can give us feedback into our own situations. And I think that's what that free call is there for. It's to help someone have clarity into their situation, and also to then use the tools and the courses and the things that we've been building for so long and the experience of so many of our community members. That's the reason to be a part of this inner circle, is to hear what other people are doing and to see and be able to talk with them. We get to share some of them from time to time on the podcast, but there's just so much value in there, and to be encouraged by those. So if you learn nothing from anything else in this, is that you can do this all you need to do is just take one step, put one foot before the other, and you can get there. So as always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We appreciate you. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.